Hey, good evening, guys. Welcome back to the 15th Malaysian Architecture Online Education Series, proudly presented by MASA. Hope you guys are doing well, and thank you for joining us tonight. So, for those who are new, MASA is Malaysian Architecture Student Alliance and is a non-profit student committee acting directly under PAM, which is the Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia, consisting of students representative from all architecture institute in Malaysia. So during this time of MCO, MASA and PAM have decided to launch this online lecture series for students to be more productive and gain more insights. Architect Ardianta is the head of PAM education, and Dr. 𝐄𝐧𝐞𝐫𝐠𝐲 is the convener. My name is 𝐄𝐧𝐞𝐫𝐠𝐲 Sylvester, a MASA representative from UCSI University, and I will be your MC for tonight. So I would like to introduce our speaker for tonight, 𝐂𝐼𝐷R 𝐶𝐾𝐬. She is the principal of KMT Architect. So throughout her career, she is involved in designing and managing various types of building projects consisting of residential, commercial, and mixed development. She obtained her Bachelor of Design, Architecture, and Bachelor of Architecture from University Putra Malaysia, and Master in Degree in Project Management from University of Malaya. She is registered architect and registered interior designer with Board of Architect Malaysia and corporate member of Malaysian Institute of Architects, and also Malaysian Institute of Interior Designer. Besides that, she is also a GBI facilitator and certified Green RE manager. She is regularly involved in local universities as an external assessor and currently a design lecturer in UCSI University. So sit back and relax. We will have Q&A session at the end of the talk. But if you have any questions during the sharing, feel free to type them down in the chat box so we can attend to them at the end of the sharing. So, hi, Kemi, how are you?
Hi, Gumar. Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Gumar, for the introductions. First of all, would like to thank MASA and also PAM for the invitations. Hope you guys will enjoy the sessions later.
Yep. You may start.
Okay, I start now. My topic today is to design for the sustainability, where the passive strategy towards the energy efficient buildings. Okay. The contents for today's presentations, it will be consists of a few subtopics. The first is why green buildings, what is green buildings and why you want to do green buildings, and what is the challenges well in Malaysia and what is the importance of it, and the Malaysian sustainability ratings tools. And also next will be the sustainability themes and comparisons and the ratings in terms of the criteria. Following by the passive design strategies and case study. I will start with what is the green buildings. I believe everyone's heard about what is the green buildings. But to be exact, green building is an environmental sustainable buildings to reduce the overall impacts of the built environments of its surroundings. It focuses on improving the efficiency use of the resources such as energy, water, materials, while reducing the impacts on humans' health and also environmental throughout its life cycle. So how it can be achieved? Usually it can be achieved through design, construction, operations, and also maintenance, and also some of the renovations projects. So you can see that I'm trying to compare the cold, dry climates, hot, arid climates, and also hot and humid climates here. So as you can see, different climatic regions actually pose different set of the design challenges and opportunities. For example, for the cold climate, it benefits from the compact building form that utilizing the strategy for maximizing passive solar heatings and with the insulations for minimizing the heat loss. Like the igloo is well known for the solutions for these conditions, as it's designed to orient the the entrance away from the prevailing winds and also to prevent hot air to escape, so that the interior temperature can reach 15 Celsius and it negative 26 Celsius on the outside. So for the freeboard, or with the adopt roof and wall, which has a high insulation values and the window was small to prevent the glary suns. Hot and humid climate face two problems where they have heat and also the moisture. So this type of climates favors the buildings that they are individuals and also elevators that encourage air movements. The purpose is to balance between the solar exposures, to control the solar and also the daylighting availabilities in achieve a shadings of the buildings. So why are we going to look at the green buildings? Because green building basically help us to save the energy, the resources, and also at the same time reduce all the wastes, emissions of the toxic substance, and also help to use the resources efficiently and operate to save the operations costs and also increase the productivity for the workspace. And also, yeah, in a way, you also have to in harmonies with the local climates and also the surrounding environments. The most important that is it actually improve our quality of life and at the same time sustaining the capacity of the ecosystem at the local and the global level. So the contributions of green buildings in the fight against COVID-19. Right. So in the times of the pandemic, COVID-19, there are some studies actually have publishings by the organizations for economic cooperations and developments, where the abbreviation as OECD, okay, and also together with the World Green Building Council. They have highlighted that these new normalcies have demand the housing schemes to emphasizing on the flexibility, community, and sustainability, where they have summarized all this into the 5 pillars, which to providing the basic functions for epidemics preventions and control, and also providing the convenience and facilities for the preventions and control, reducing the risks and also prevent the infections of the pandemic, and protect the health of the occupants and try to stabilizing work and the works and the living environment. So you could see that this is some of the news articles about how the China actually analyzing the green building benefit to fight against the COVID-19. Okay. And for the sustainability, it says amid the COVID-19 pandemics, where emphasizing on the innovations buildings on the behavior changes. So through the sustainability, in a way actually improve the well-being and the health of the occupants through with the sustainable buildings. This is some of the Malaysia sustainability ratings tools in Malaysia, where this was developed. The first in Malaysia is the Green Building Index, which is in the years of 2009. Okay, and it was following by some other sustainability ratings tools to measure the sustainability of the construction projects. So from here, you could see the timelines of the developments of the ratings tools from 2009 until 2016. Of course, we will expect that there will be more coming. Okay, I should try to categorize all these sustainability ratings tools. So for the buildings, you could see that there are few ratings tools that are focusing on the buildings, and also there are few actually focusing on the townships. And for the infrastructures, they also, for now, they are just my GHI, which is focusing on the infrastructures. Okay, and the Green RE and the Green RE GBI and the KSP Iskandar, basically their offerings both individual assessment for both individual building and also for the whole township. In terms of the tropical focus, Green Pass, MICRAS, Malacca, Green Seals, and the 𝐃𝐬𝐬𝐻𝐿 offer assessment for the individual buildings. Their RCCF and the SUSTES are applicable for township only. There is some of the comparisons in terms of the ratings for the ratings tools. So as comparisons, a relative contributions of assessments on the primary sustainability themes to the overall assessments in the 5 ratings tools, it could be clearly seen that the energy efficiency is the most dominant issue in these 5 ratings tools. And this was following by the site planning and management and IEQ. Either they will be placed on the second or third depending on the ratings tools. And from the figure, actually you can see there's one communities of all these 5 rating tools is that the contributions of transportations is the least amongst the primary sustainability themes. So among the sustainability themes, there are project management, planning and management, there are water efficiency, there are waste management, there are site planning and management, there are energy efficiency, there are IEQ, there are transportations, material resources, and also some of the green innovations. And amongst these 5 green building ratings tools, 2 of them, which is the GBI and Green RE, are developed by the professional associations. One in the GBI is developed by the MGBC, and the Green RE is by the RADA, with Malacca, Green Seals, and the MICRAS and 𝐃𝐬𝐬𝐻𝐿 are the more on the government driven. Okay, the purpose of the green rating tools actually is to optimize the building performance, to reduce the environmental impacts through the provisions of the measurements on the building environmental effects, and also the standard that allow the building to be judged objectively. You have to be judged objectively based on all these criteria, which is these 9 primary themes of sustainability, like I have mentioned just now, which is the project management planning, the site planning, the transportations, energy efficiency, water efficiency, indoor environmental quality, which is the IEQ, the material resources, the waste management, and the innovations part. Okay, now I will move into the passive design strategies. I will start with the building envelope design. So what is building envelopes? I believe that some of you, right, when you start with your design, after you are completing your layout, you start to look into the building envelopes. So before that, probably we will start with what is the definitions of the building envelope. It actually is a external portions of a building through which the thermal energy is transferred. You know, we always look at the aesthetic part of the buildings, but somehow we also, in a way, when you look into in the sustainability perspective, we will look into how the thermal energy is transferred, because most of the thermal energy is will transfer through the building envelopes. I will start this with the maybe a short explanations about what is OTTV. It's an overall thermal transfer value. Okay, there is the design perimeter, basically to indicate the solar thermal load that's transmitted through the buildings, but this will be excluded the roof, because the OTTV for the roof, there will be another formulas to do the calculations of it. So basically the OTTV, there is a control measures for the building envelope design. Okay, based on the MS 1525, the total air conditioning area, it shouldn't exceeding 1,000 meters square. It shouldn't exceed, the OTTV, it shouldn't exceed 50 watts per meter square. So that is a formula. You can see the OTTV equals to 15 alpha 1 to window to wall ratios, and the U value of the wall times 6 of window to wall ratios, the U value for the windows times another plus another 194 OF. OF is the factor for the orientations, and the window to wall ratios, and the SC is the shading coefficient. So from these equations, basically you could see that window and wall ratio plays a very important role here. And also the U value of the wall, which is the materials of the wall. And the U value of the window is the types of the glazing that you will be using. And the shading coefficients, it will be the shading devices. So maybe I can move further, which is the OTTV. First, I will divide into 3 parts. The first part is the heat conduction through the wall, where we will consider about what is the U value of the wall. Following by the second part, it will be the heat conduction through the window and the solar heat gains through the window. It will be the last part of it. So the OTTV is a combination. This equation is a combination of these 3 things. However, in the OTTV formulations, right, there are few items that won't be considered. For example, like internal shading device, like curtain, because curtain, the solar reflection shading from the adjacent buildings, from the neighboring or adjacent buildings, and also some of the green wall, because all these things probably is not a permanent, it won't be permanent, or it's not a fixed thing in the building. So now maybe I could look further, which is a heat conduction through the wall. So from these equations, right, what I mentioned just now, there is an alpha, right? Alpha is the color of the wall. So when you design a building, right, some of you probably would like to have a more darker kind of a facade design. So this will contribute to a larger alpha value compared to the light color pins of buildings. Second is the window to wall ratio. I mentioned just now, the sizes of your window, the openings, the size of openings, the window, and also the numbers of your openings. It will be somehow affecting the heat to transmitting into the space as well. And the U value, I try to have a calculation of the U value here, because when you come, the total arc of the U value, it will be depends on the resistance, the thermal, it will be called, yeah, the resistance of the materials. Okay, this is some example for the plastering brick wall, where there's a details here. Because see, for the external facade, there is a cement plastering, right? And there is a brick wall, which is covered by the plaster, and also some of the internal surface. So all these things actually is sum up to the total U value based on their thermal conductivity, their thickness, and their density. Okay, next I talk about the solar transmissions through the glass, which is the second part of the OTTV, which is the heat conduction through the window. As the sunlight was strike on the glazings and as part of the solar radiations which transmitted through the glass and proceeds to heat up the interior spaces. Because the glass basically is where the heat actually emits to the spaces. And part of the solar energy is reflected off the glass depending on the angles of the incidence. Yep. And part of the solar energy is absorbed into the glass, and then they will re-radiate both inwards and also outwards. Means some of the light basically will be reflected to outside, and most of the light probably will be transmitting into the internal spaces. So to avoid the heat entering the building, so it's critical to prevent it from the initial transmissions through the glass. So from what you can see, the formula of the OTTV for the given wall orientation, of course, because the building you have few orientations, we have north, south, east, west. So we have to actually take considerations of all the orientations, or part side of the orientations. So this is part of it where the heat conduction through the windows. So it will be, the equation will be 6 times wall to window ratios and the U value for the glass. So how are we going to get the U value for the glass? So we can look further. Okay. Okay, from here's the equations of the U value of the glass. It will based on the glazing type. So for the single glazing, which is a single clear glazing, the U value will be more compared to the double glazing with low E class. So if you have a large U value, it will be affecting your OTTV. It means that the OTTV will be increased. So there is some images, some photos about what is a clear glass and how the transmissions of the heat into the spaces. So if you are using the double glazing or double glazing with the low E, probably the percentage of the heats that transmitting into the space will be lesser, comparing to those buildings that are using a clear glaze. Okay, this is a solar orientation factors or F, and it will be another reasons that actually contributes to the increasing of the OTTV, right? Because the orientations of the buildings, like when you orientate your building towards north and south, so the OF is lesser compared to if you are orientate your buildings towards east and west. So you could see that actually orientations play an important role in passive design strategy. Okay, now I will move into the shading device. See, those shading device also part of the equations where you can see the shading device and also the use of the glazings will be contributes to the heat transmitting through the window. So what is shading device? So external shading device actually is more effective than the internal blind. Like I just mentioned just now, is that there is a permanent item that basically attached to the buildings, right? They will become together with constructors during the construction period. But when you look into internal blind, it can be removed anytime. And also the external shading device will block up the direct sunlight into that to direct enter into the buildings. So here there is some of the examples where types of the glazings and how it actually affecting the views toward the view fields of the occupants. So for horizontal single, if you are using the horizontal louvers, probably you will have a better views compared to the vertical film, because it won't block your views. And usually how you arrange it probably is just above the occupant's eye level. Okay, now I will talk about the sun path diagrams. Yeah, because sun path is also part of the the affecting how we designing in the buildings to adapt to the daylight things. So sun path actually shows the path of the sun across the sky. So the position of the sun's sky actually is defined by two angles, which is one solar azimuth and also the solar altitude. So this solar azimuth is the clockwise angle between the north reference and the perpendicular projections of the sun now onto the horizontal plane. Solar altitudes are also referring to as a solar elevations angle, is angle of the sun positions and the horizontal plane. So you could see there is some diagrams of the solar angles there. So that, and also that is showing the difference between the solar azimuth and solar altitudes. So for the figures 2, there is a sun path diagrams of Kuala Lumpur, and the path of the suns are represented by the curve. So the top curve actually representing the path of the sun for the summers, which is approximate like from June 21st to 22nd. And the middle curve really it will show from the March 20 to 21 and the September's. So for the bottom curve, it will show the winters, which is on the December 21st and 22nd. So from this particular curve, it will indicate the location of the sun along the path at a particular times of the days. And the sun locations of the diagrams at a particular times is defined by the concentric line representing solar attitudes with the outermost concentric line representing the horizontals and also radiant line representing the solar azimuth. So solar angles are required for shadings and shadowing analysis. What I'm saying that maybe I can further explain later. Okay, for the sun shading design, you basically can use the shadows angle protect. For sun shading designs, right, to determine the base sun shading design, basically, so the shadow angle protectors can be superimposed. You can basically use that, superimpose it on your sun path diagrams to determine the vertical shadows angles and also the horizontal shadows angles. So from this view, figure 3, you can show the actually superimpose of the shadows angle protractors on the sun path diagrams for Kuala Lumpur. This is to determine the vertical shadow angles and also the horizontal shadows angles for the northeast facade, and for each facade, the critical vertical shadow angles and horizontal shadow angles need to determine to redesign the appropriate sun shading projections. And the figure 4, you can see there is actually shadow angles and also some of the solar angles. So it actually illustrates the various solar angles, which is solar attitudes and also the solar azimuths, and the shadow angles, verticals, which are vertical solar angles, and also the horizontal solar angles in relation to the vertical and horizontal sun shading. So this is actually how they actually manipulate and to designing it based on the shadows angles and also some of the solar angles. Okay. Since we just now we have covered the OTTV, we have covered the shading devices based on the equations and also the orientations, the color of the buildings, and the U value of the wall, U value, the types of the glazings. We include the thermal insulations, because when actually the insulation I will talk on the roof, I think that is okay. So for the roof U value, they are worked out from the thermal resistance of the respective roof planes, where they actually it's based on the respective materials that making up the roof. So roof U value refers to the thermal transmissions values of the composite roof, and is proportions to the thermal resistance, inversely proportional to the thermal resistance, which is U equals to MS from the MS 1525, the roof of a conditioned aerospace channel have a thermal transmittance gradient that from here you can see from the chart tables beside, there is a roof weight groups. One is the light, another one is the heavy roof. So for a concrete roof, it will be considered is a heavy roof because it's above 50 kg per meter square. So the maximum U value for it shouldn't be more than 0.6 for a concrete roof. So can you see from here, I try to do a comparison between the outside flat roof without insulations and another one is with the insulations. So with the flat roof without insulations, you see the U value is 2.6, which is higher than the required, the mandatory requirements of the U value. So it seems like this is not compliant to the mandatory requirements. So for the roof that have for the heavy roof, like a concrete roof. But however, when you have applied an insulation level on top of it, the U value for the roof actually reduced to 0.477. So it shows the compliance requirements for the U value as it's not exceeding the maximum U value of 0.6. So you could see from here, the higher the resistance, the lower the U value is the better. Because it will less contribute to the overall calculations of the OTTV. Okay, based on these equations and also some of the example, you actually can conclude that in order to reduce the energy usage in a building through the building to enhance and further enhance the building envelope design, you have to orientate your building intelligently, like facing north and facing south instead of east and west, and using of the materials to control the heat. And use the materials really. You can use some insulations of type of the wall, different material for the wall and for your roof. And also to insulate your wall and the roof, you can actually add 1 layers of the insulations for it, because in a way it will increase the resistance of them and the conductivity, thermal conductivity, and at the same time reduce the thermal the heat to transmit into the space. And reduce, it will be probably the same to reduce the OTTV and also RTTV. And the alpha value just now that I have mentioned just now is that the lighter color probably it will help to reduce the OTTV as well. So use the light color pins for your wall, and locating and sizing the window smartly due to the window and wall ratios just now, right? And choosing the glazing correctly, the type of glazing. Instead of having the clear glass properly, if you are going to reduce or get lesser heat into the spaces, you should have a double glazing. You should utilize the low E glass and providing shadings to the window. You can actually apply the horizontal shading devices or vertical shading devices to block the direct heat into the spaces. So now I will move into daylighting. Yeah, in Malaysia, we always design with daylighting. However, we have to keep in mind that somehow daylighting is not equal to sunlight. As if you are directly utilize the sunlight, it's about you will get the free heat. You will heat up the spaces. But instead, you should look into the diffuse or indirect light, which is the daylight, because they actually provide you a free light into the spaces. So what is direct radiations and what is diffuse radiations? So direct radiation actually is coming straight from the sun through the atmosphere. Well, the diffuse radiation actually is a radiation reflected from the entire sky. Then why would one be interesting in emitting daylight into the buildings? Because firstly, it actually helps you to illuminate the building interior passively, right? You can save a lot of money, by bringing in the daylight into the space and lit up the spaces, and reducing the consumptions of the electrical energy. Yes, in terms of the cost saving, and it could be actually applied as a design element to lift up the spaces. I believe that there are a lot of students actually like to apply and explore using the light and shadow into their buildings. So light actually is a very important element for architecture design tools. Why? Because first it brings architectures to life. You can see there are some images that actually they try to use to show the experience of the user, right? How the user appreciate the spaces, and it could also can be used to show the form and also the meaning of the spaces. How the people, it's something like a journey of the spaces where the sun actually coming in from into the spaces. It creates different feelings to the user as well. There are a few ways actually to bring in the daylight into the buildings. First of all is the light shelf, where daylight is reflected off the ceilings and entering into the building interior. And the placements of the light shelf is usually above the eye level. So the daylight basically is reflect off the ceilings and enter into the building interiors. So the placement of the light shelf, it has to usually we place it above the eye level so it won't block the view of the occupants. So what is light shelf? Light shelf basically is a horizontal planes that actually protrude out from the vertical planes from your window. So the second strategy that you can use actually to bring in the daylight into a building is the rooftop openings, such as skylight, because it will help you to promote or bring in the daylight deep into the building interiors. It usually located above the occupant's eye level, and it able to offering views to scenes, to the sky and very tall vegetations and buildings. And for the 𝐶 is a window forms that located either on the vertical planes of any principal elevations of the buildings or as a vertical penetrations on the roof surface. So when placed in one of the vertical envelope face of a building, the ability of the 𝐶 to emit light more deeply into the space is better than a vertical windows. So when 𝐶 is incorporated into a building roof planes, then daylight will be emitted into the space beneath the 𝐶. So for example, if you are designing or constructing a buildings with a very large floor areas, then the 𝐶 can be placed away from the building's perimeter. Thereby, it will be helps to emitting the daylight into the interiors. So next strategy, it could be borrowing light from a perimeter space. Maybe you, due to the form or due to the size of your layout, right? So how to get the daylight into the internal area, which is separated from the building perimeters, which is your external building envelopes. So sometimes the building, nowadays the building have too many stories to use the light tunnel or extra. So the rooftops openings are inappropriate in a ways for the reason of style or form. So the daylight that penetrate to the separating or interior wall, which is by using the material like transparent materials like windows, right? It could be somehow bring in the light. However, there is also some limitations. For example, like by using some of the transparent materials in the internal wall, it will be offer a very poor acoustic separations, and it also at the same time did not provide any visual privacy and also presents some kind of the safety problems to the occupants as well. And the design strategies of bring daylight things into the building's interior through the grace portions of the space divider. Usually we will describe it as borrowing the light. Why? Because generally the amount of light that can be borrowed is insufficient. So it somehow is insufficient to handling the details containing dust. Having some of the daylight pass through a composite partitions will enable interior space to be employed for activities such as circulations and socializing purpose. Next strategy, probably you can combine these three devices in part of all together. So by combining these three strategies, it can be somehow beneficial in various combinations to improve the window performance in the vertical envelopes. Like all the three devices are basically the secondary means for bringing light into a building. For example, the 𝐶 and the rooftop openings are infrequently employed as the principal entry from the for illuminating spaces. And the light shaft and the borrowing light strategy both considered best as supplements for the window that are located in the vertical envelopes. And light shafts can also be used in vertical fenestrations assembly to increase the amount of daylight that can pass into the internal space through partly glazed partitions. 𝐶 located at the building perimeter will also aim in guiding light to the glazing of such composite partitions. A light shaft reflected panels can be placed external to a 𝐶 to reflect daylight in. So from here, in order to bring in the daylight, actually having few strategies. So one of it could be the light by utilizing the light shaft, the horizontal plane. Secondly, the rooftop opening, which is a skylight, following by the borrowing light from a perimeter spaces. And also you can combine all these three strategies together. Next, I will move into talk about how you go into designing for a daylight. There will be use of vegetation. You can basically use the vegetation for controlling the emissions of daylight by employing the vegetations to will reduce the daylight brightness or glare into the spaces, and reflectance of the surface external to the building. So the surface that have highest reflectance, such as the glossy surface, can actually reflect the light into the buildings. So the choice of the external surface near a building can either enhance or distract from the characters of the illuminance within a building. So for example, like water body, liquid, or frozen display, they actually display high reflectance. So all these actually have the potentials of reflecting the light into the buildings. Alternatively, the building materials like aluminium, the standard glass, standard steel, and concrete with a high sand content also can be highly reflective. Narrow width of the buildings for daylight penetrations will be the second ways of designing for the daylightings, where for the single side spaces, a standard rule of thumb that suggests for the depths that daylight will be penetrate usefully is to equal to approximate 2 times 5 times the height of the window. So that is the rule of thumb of designing for the daylight penetrate into the spaces. And also use of ultra, where the covered the light wells, cavities that vertical open up building interiors. Space on the floor that surroundings and atriums can be illuminated with the daylight that pass down the atriums. The quantity of the daylight that reach the lower floor of the buildings will depend on the mean used to emit daylight into the atrium's volumes and the geometry of the atrium spaces, and also choice of the material used. So appropriate orientations for emitting daylight. The path for the direct beams components of the solar radiations will generally coincidence with the primary view fields of the building occupants who looks out of this window. So it will cause visual discomforts because of the brightness. So in a way, the suitable window treatments are needed to block the direct beam sunlight when glazing is located on the principal solar corrections directions. So when you having a glazing design or window design that are really facing the daylight emitting, it will somehow cause discomfort for the user. That in a way, we have to do maybe some of the louvers or some of the treatments for the window to prevent or try to reduce the glaze into the spaces. And using the window in the vertical wall as a characteristic, windows that place higher in a wall will provide a more uniform distribution of the daylight throughout a spaces. By employing the highest windows will provide benefits that window surface will be less likely to interrupt on the occupants' field views and reduce the possibility that the occupants will experience the grayly conditions. However, the benefit, the advantage of the higher window is that it will help to decrease the opportunity for occupants to find a view. Window, it could be used as the skylight. The principle on using the skylight is for the space to illuminate with the skylight, the space must be on the top story of the buildings. So major concern is whether the emissions of the daylight will have to be controlled as it passes through the skylight. Skylight actually represent a very good means for getting the daylight into the spaces at some distance from the perimeter's window wall. And daylight actually provided by vertical window tends to be brighter near to the window wall, and they will be progressively dimmer as move away from the envelope. So daylight patterns created by the skylight depends on the shapes of the skylight and also its locations. So if you are going to use the windows as a skylight, all this is what you have to consider, because it will be affecting the patterns of your daylight. Okay, next I will talk about the controlling radiation transmissions to the glazings. Like I have mentioned previously in the building envelopes, right? The selections of the glazing materials is the importance, and the way how you actually assembly it to display to reduce overload, to reduce the transmissions of heat into the spaces. And some of the solar radiations into the space, into the building, can also cause occupant discomfort. Discomfort in terms of the visual discomfort and also the thermal discomfort if you fails in controlling the radiation transmissions to the glazing. This is the effect or impacts of fails to basically control the radiation transmissions. And how to control? You can use the devices externals to the window to control the emissions of radiations, like some of the common shading devices which are being used now are horizontal overhang vertical fins. They are placed above and alongside the window, and all these overhangs and fins they can actually use to create the aircraft assembly attached to the external building surface. Next will be you can employ internal shading device by using the Venetian's blind or roller blinds to cover the window internal surface. All these internal devices will help to control and reduce the radiation transmissions through the window. And the ability to control transmittance of the solar radiations basically determined by few things. First is like colors, the placings between the blind, the extent of overlappings, the use of the materials. All these basically will affecting the ability to control the transmittance of heat. Daylight factors. I think most of you have heard about daylight factors. Yes, before, right? Okay, here. Okay, what is daylight factors? So daylight factors basically is used to describe the presence of the daylight in a building. It will describe how many daylight have been fall into the surface of a building spaces as the light is passed through the openings in the building envelopes. So daylight factor, it functions as a matrix to measure or to predict the daylight that presence in the buildings, and it is defined as the ratios of the illuminance measured as a point where the buildings to the external illuminance. So it's the internal illuminance, and it will be a ratios of internal illuminance to the external illuminance. So the daylight factors and the impact, where you can see there is a table beside here. The acceptable daylight and the glare is 1 to 3.5% of. So the daylight factors for that occupant, it can be accepted is 1 to 3.5%. So daylight, it can be employed to the size of the window during the schematic design stage to evaluate and also help you to basically fine-tune your design. So if when you're designing your building, you found out that basically the internal illuminance, the ratio of internal illuminance is even higher than the required that is not within the acceptable value. Probably you have to readjust back your design. There are actually two representations devices, isolux contours and daylight factors profile, which are now being employed here. And isolux diagram actually shows a series of contour lines that actually indicate the daylight factors level, and the daylight factors profile is derived from the isolux contour diagrams, where you can see some of the images beside here. And it will create a vertical planes that draw perpendiculars to the window surface and also projecting into the building space. So from here you basically can see see the isolux diagrams that actually get it from the spaces, and from there actually they will translate into the daylight factors profile, which is generated from the isolux contour. So from the MS1525, right, we also talk about a good daylighting system. There are few things that have to be taken into considerations during the preliminary design stage. So right away is the space orientations. For physicals of like shape, the size, and the optical properties of the glazing through which the daylight will transmit or penetrate. The internal wall, the floor, ceiling surface properties, like what is the colors, what is their reflectivities. Next will be the visual contrast between the adjacent surface, like between the wall, between the ceilings, and also some of the protections from the visual discomfort, like glare that caused by the external and internal building elements. So conventional and innovative daylight strategy is to transport and to distribute the light into the buildings, and the purpose is to reduce the need of the artificial lightings without the increasing of the solar heat gains. So now I will move into the next strategy, which is natural ventilations. So natural ventilations is use the natural force of the wings to deliver a sufficient fresh air, and also the air change to ventilate and enclose the spaces, without the active temperatures control or mechanical system, which is this will be more cost saving in a way, and also the fresh air is required. However, the fresh air is required in the buildings to elevate the odors and also improve the IEQs of the spaces. The provisions for natural ventilated lobby area, corridor, or like lift core, staircase should be encouraged in a way, because it would be good to have natural ventilators to reduce the use of the energies. And also in a way, it will help to comply to the requirements from the fire authorities for the smoke ventings of the spaces if you have a natural ventilations in the spaces. So in some of the cases, spill air from the adjacent spaces is insufficient. So it have to be sufficient to provide for the required air change to ventilate the spaces and provide a thermal comforts with reduced energies. Natural ventilation strategies, it depends on the movements of the air through spaces to equalize the pressures. There are two methods to provide for the natural ventilations. One of it is the cross ventilations. Another one is the step ventilations. So for the share, I think you guys roughly have read through this before. What is cross ventilations and what is the step ventilations? But what is a good ventilation design? A good cross ventilation design, it should be considered the following. Like you have to orientate the buildings to maximize the surface exposed to the prevailing wind. Provide the inlets of the window side and the outlet, the inlet and the outlet. And use some of the architectural features like wind walls or some parapets to create some positive and negative pressures areas to induce the cross ventilations. And you can provide openings on opposite walls to optimize for the cross ventilations effectively. So however, if this is not possible, the opening can still be placed on the adjacent wall. Design openings to be easily accessible and operable by the occupants, and try to avoid any obstructions between the inlets and the outlets. So it have to be free, so it will encourage the winds to flow through the spaces. and have equal inlet and outlet areas to maximize the airflow. So there's some images where you could see here is that A and C, basically they have a excellent and good airflow in the spaces, but B and D is poor because of the locations where they place the wind wall. So the first image basically you can see is the inlets and the outlet. So the next opening, when the outlet, you can try to place it, you know, higher of the, okay. Beside that, for the good cross ventilation design should also consider about design the outlet openings to be slightly larger than the inlet opening, and try to locate the outlet openings on the wind wall sides at the occupant's area level, and use good site plannings like landscaping, the planting strategies to cool the incoming air. So from the image, you can see the small inlets and small outlets. So it will be encourage more air to flow in if you have a large outlet, because it will increase in the wind speed. And the types of opening will be according to the building types and the climatic conditions, like type of the buildings that you're going to design. That you maybe you are designing a residential building, you are designing a commercial buildings, and also in terms of climatic conditions as well. Probably depends on the different, when you're designing the buildings on different countries, right? You have to consider about their climatic conditions of that particular country. Step ventilation. Step ventilation is a passive cooling strategy, which depending on two basic principles. Is when the air warms up, it becomes less dense and will be rise, and the fresh ambient air, it will replace the rising air. So there are some of the images that how the air basically coming in from the opening from the spaces, and actually they rise to the top. Okay, a good step ventilation, there's few things that have to take into considerations. Like you have to be provide at least two ventilations opening, one closest to the floor, which is the inlet, and the other higher in the space, which is the outlet. And maximize the vertical distance between these two sets of openings. And by increasing the differential height will also produce a better airflow between the spaces, and the equal inlet and outlet areas to maximize the airflow. Next will be providing openings in the stairwell or other continuous vertical elements so that they can actually work as a stairwell. Such spaces may also be used to ventilate the adjacent spaces because their stack height allowed them to display large volumes to the air. And you could also use the louvers on inlets to channel air intake, and also use some of the architecture's features like just to exhaust the air, hot indoor air outside the buildings. The low incidence of the significant wind force of low wind speeds to achieve a sensible air moving for thermal comforts manages additional air movements with the mechanical means. It means that if you have a low incidence or low wind force or low wind speed, you might need some of the additional mechanical means to achieve thermal comforts or necessary air movements. Now I will move into the strategy landscaping. Just for the strategy landscaping, right, they have vegetations, they have a courtyard spaces. You can actually utilize some of the landscaping and the shading device as well. We have a combinations of all of it, right? Yeah, vegetations, it can be used to shade the buildings and also to help to create a microclimates around the buildings. Well, for the courtyard spaces, basically it will provide a very cool and semi-private interior microclimate from which is to draw the cool air into the buildings. And the landscaping and shading device, yeah, it could be combine both to provide an areas of coolings around the buildings. You can see some of the images where how the tree actually provide a shade to the space, to the buildings. And also there is a courtyard inside the space to cool the spaces. Okay, now I will move into the case study. There's some case studies. The first case that I will talk about is really the PAM Center. I think most of you already knows where is the PAM Centers, right? PAM Center is the headquarters of Malaysia Institute of Architects and is located at Jalan Tanduk in Bangsa. And it was constructed on the narrow site that has previously occupied by 4-story buildings. It was awarded GBI Platinum rating, which is making it as one of the greenest building built to date. The most striking features of the buildings actually is their powder coated aluminum strings, which is we call it a breathable skins that wraps around the facade. There is a stepping diagonally across the main facades are a series of a double and the triples garden atriums follow the flow of the straight flight, the staircase, the steel staircase that link the floor of the building both physically and visually. So the build out is about like 3,000 meters square, which contains all the space to accommodate the institute activities and events such as some of the meeting room, the council exhibition, council ballrooms, the exhibitions hall, there is a cafe and also some of office spaces and rooftop sky bar at the tops of the roof. There some of the sustainability have been adopted here, which are actually the reason of actually selecting this as one of the case study due to the rating that actually gains a GBI Platinum ratings for these buildings. So one of it, basically what they do, they did actually maximize the natural daylight when more of 50% of the spaces is illuminated with the natural light through the large glass opening and skylight. And northwest facade is as with the clear glass, while the skylight above the flight staircase within light actually light up the spaces. Then they maximize the natural ventilations and the thermal comfort of the spaces. The openings on all the building sides to facilitate the cross ventilations and also the step ventilations effect is created by using the step, like they're having a multi-level atriums with valve openings, and all the public and circulation spaces are actually natural ventilators too. And the interesting part of the building also, they're actually reusing the existing structures. Like previously, there is actually the 4-story structures we have been retained and incorporate into the use of the new buildings materials. Also the building processes, they are trying to use that recycled content, the regional materials, and some of the materials with the low level or harmful VOC. They also take the initiative in reducing the heat gains and glare by having the sun shading devices and blind on the northwest facade, and it actually helped them to cut down 60% of the solar radiations. And also there are tree planters to reduce the glare and also to shade the facade, and also the cool air traps during the night, right? It further helps to cool down the buildings. Energy, as is having a high coefficient of performance value and the variable refrigerant flow air conditioning system, and it help to reduce the energy consumptions. Also, the building's automation systems has an energy management system to improve the energy consumptions and the user friendliness by controlling general lighting. So how they control the general lightings, they use the photo and the motion sensor, like the energy They also have the energy monitoring while using the digital power meters, and also some water usage monitoring while digital water meters, and also some of the educational display and analyze of the building energy performance. They're also using some renewable energy. So by having a solar photovoltaic system which is installed on the rooftop. Also, they did save some waters by having the water efficiency fittings, which it helped them to result in 55% of the water savings, and also all the water requirements for flushings and irrigations is fully met by utilizing the rainwater harvesting. So by utilizing the rainwater harvesting, it helps them actually for the toilet flushings, irrigations. Then next will be they're actually having a lot of green that's surrounding the buildings. Like they have a lot of trees and plants that help to absorb the carbon dioxide and also to produce the oxygens. And the vertical greenery and herbs gardens are also in place for the human's comfort and also for the consumptions respectively. Waste management, they do having the on-site composting that allow the users to become involved and also educate about what the organic waste processing and also to contribute to the building landscape sustainability. They also helps to promoting a green lifestyle by having some, you could see that actually are hybrids, vehicle charging stations, and some of the bicycle racks to encourage the greener modes of the transportations. So they actually encourage us to come by the bicycle, encourage us to basically carpool or to this and buying some hybrid car. This is some of the details of how the percentage of how many energy they have saved throughout the years and the improvement in the IEQ, indoor environment qualities, and the conservations and the greenery of their site plannings, the material resources, how many percent of the existing material that they have been reused from the existing buildings, and water efficiency, the saving in terms of waters, and some of the other innovative green features that have been applied. These are the details of the percentage of it. This is the case study number 2. Actually, we can look into the WISMA radar. WIN-RE actually is by radar. Okay. This building is located at the Kelana Jaya, PJ, which has been completed in 2012. It had been completed with sustainability features and it had been incorporated into its functionalities. So these 3-story buildings is having a build out, it's like 29,000 square feet, and it's designed to face south in order to avoid direct sunlight. While it face west facing wall have a double skin that prevent the heat from the direct entering to the buildings. All its office spaces are located at the north and the east part of the buildings, which are well shaded from the direct heat. And unlike like most of the office buildings, they actually utilize less air conditioning systems at the commons areas. But you wouldn't really feel stuffy inside, as its north and the south facade are facing the prevailing wind directions. When about like 63.6% of the spaces have a natural ventilations from the wing, and on top of that, the adoptions of the air conditioning and mechanical ventilations system also will help in reducing the heat in the buildings, but they are more employ the use of the natural ventilations than the mechanical ventilations. The water features at the entrance actually helps them to cool the air, while also at the same time actually create a very nicely crafted landscaping design. And they're utilizing like water meters and water efficiency fitting also have been installed at various locations to monitor the usage or also to detect the leakages. And they also use the tempered glass ceilings in the building center to allow the daylight into the buildings. The building has a photovoltaic system also harness the solar energy, and also some rainwater harvesting system to collect the water for the cleaning purpose. There's some of the photo. I think most of you probably quite familiar with these buildings. Yeah, is green RE Gold certified buildings. And these some of the informations about the criteria in assessing the buildings, like the building envelopes, the thermal performance, that actually for the OTTV they're like less than 50 watts per meter square, and what is the U value for the wall, the RTTV. So actually from the information you could see actually there is complies to the mandatory requirements to achieve certain ratings. Okay, and they have the natural ventilations and daylighting with the natural ventilations of 63.6% of the 40 out of 22 rooms are natural ventilated, and they also apply the step ventilation into the spaces. With the daylight factors, which is within the acceptable range, is achieved in 50% of the occupied spaces. By using some of the water efficient fitting, it actually helps to reduce 55% of the required waters in the buildings. And there is some of the collections, like how many collections of the based on the usage. So it actually can have utilized 65% of the usage of the total required. And there's a renewable energy as well, where average how many energy can be collected. Okay, I think that's all from me today. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, 𝐴𝐴, for the very interesting and rich sharing. Hope you guys enjoyed it and gained a lot of information and knowledge. We'll be having our Q&A session now. So we got some questions for you from the audience. The first question is from Rance Irvin. Are there any online softwares that can calculate or determine sun path, wind path, and other such diagrams for presentation?
Yes, you may get these informations online. There's software that actually called gasma.com.
Okay, all right. I hope that answers your question. The second question is from Dayang. What are the effects of COVID-19 on passive design?
Let's put it this way. How the passive design actually bring benefits to the COVID-19 time. For example, like the building envelopes actually plays a role in controlling the indoor environmental qualities, such as the ventilating indoor spaces with the outdoor air to control the spread of the virus and also diluting the airborne contaminants.
Okay. Next question is from Hazim Zaim. Is it true that full glass from floor to roof, is it very expensive?
Okay, right. The cost of the glass will depends on the factors such as the types of the glass, the sizes, the thickness that you are selecting. So the price will be different. So definitely, if you're using the full glass, it will be expensive. But after all, it still depends on the certain factors that the types of the glasses that you are selecting.
Okay. Next question is from Lu Huanping. Based in your experiences, which building that you have visited so far that is the most sustainable?
Okay. For the green buildings, is rated based on several criteria and also the rating systems to classify the buildings into the certified, whether it's under silver, gold, or platinum ratings as the highest. The highest is the platinum ratings. So there is some examples of the platinum rated buildings. So such as PAM Center, Energy Commission's buildings, which is also known as diamond buildings in Putrajaya, and Laman PKNS also. Perawat University in Malaysia also being certified green buildings as well.
Okay, interesting. The fifth question is from Muhammad Yusuf. How does energy efficiency work since air filtration is working 18 to 20 hours at maximum capacity in commercial and industrial buildings during the COVID-19 pandemic? Also, what are the kind of passive design that we could apply in the future against COVID types of viruses?
Okay, for the first questions, right, we may use the passive design strategy to reduce the dependency on the mechanical ventilations and filtration system. We can basically use such as the semi-open floor plans, since the closed floor plans lead to a poor ventilations. So to answering your second questions, as in the post-COVID-19 era, the ventilations usually will be more emphasizing, and the regulation, I believe, will be more strict in future now, right, in the after the post-COVID. So we have depends on the mechanical ventilations a lot. So, but we have to really need to reconsider the adjustments to accommodate the natural ventilations.
Okay, I see. Sixth question is from Zulfatli. His question is a bit long, so I'll just shorten it. In the case of using skylight as the mean for better interior lighting, how can we reduce the radiation transmission that passes through the glass and cause heat gain in the interior spaces without using any specific glass, but still maintains the view and controls the amount of heat that penetrates through the glass, especially during the noon?
Okay, we can't really have all at the same times. I think the closest suggestions that I can give is the movable shading system, which mounted below or above the skylight, which is activated through the electronically.
Okay, cool. I hope that answers your question. Seventh question is from Muhammad Afiq. Besides using glass as the material for the openings for natural daylight, can it also be used to generate electricity instead of using solar PV panels? Also, are there other materials that could help generate electricity?
Okay, if you are referring to a clear photovoltaic glasses, and they are studied and researched, but not yet being widely applied at the moment.
Okay, all right. Next question is from Vinci. She's from UCSI University, and she's planning to integrate green building design into her studio project. Does a green building actually cost more than traditional buildings? And is recycled material or natural material better as green building materials?
Okay. Green buildings is not necessary to cost more when we look from the perspective of the savings and its returns. It's because that the lower energy consumptions and the operations cost benefits to the environments and also the returns to the investment over time. Furthermore, you could see there's a demand for the rental spaces on the green buildings usually will be more premiums compared to the conventional buildings. However, I would suggest actually passive design strategy will definitely help, as it is a cost saving compared to the active strategy.
Okay. Last question is from...
And another is about recycle. Correct.
Sure.
The next questions, right? Yeah. So for the next, because you have two questions, another one, the recycle materials. I think both can be used, depends on your design. So the use of recycled materials can lower the cost and also reduce the landfills.
Okay. Last question is from Adrian Wu. How can we increase basement air quality naturally without air conditioning unit?
Okay. To improve the air quality at the basements naturally without the mechanical ventilations, I would suggest you actually to consider the sub-basement design or the courtyard, having a courtyard. So it will help you to improve the ventilations at the base, at the areas.
Okay, I think that's all for the quick Q&A session. Thank you again, 𝐴𝐿, and thank you for joining us for tonight's online lecture. Hope you all enjoyed it. So do keep in touch with us with our MASA's Instagram and Facebook page for the next online lecture. Until then, have a nice night, and we'll catch you next time. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you all.
Okay.